All right, good morning. Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you also to TribalScale, to Kirsten, and of course to Sheetal for the privilege of being here today. Although I don't know how I drew the short straw and have to follow him. He's always a tough act to follow. But I guess that's why you bring the COO up after the CEO. Figure out how to actually get it done now. I also want to thank Rachel and crew for an amazing dinner last night and everything they've done to make today flawless. We're in for a treat. And lastly, before we get started, I want to thank Evelyn, Bonnie, Jacqueline, Dana, and Simon for a great dinner conversation and a reminder of just what a power-packed group this is. I'm really excited. So let's dive in. Okay, 1999. The Yankees won the World Series for the 25th time. Cher topped the music charts, and Keanu Reeves' The Matrix was released. I was working for Trilogy, a small tech company in Austin, Texas, as part of its innovation team. We were busy dreaming up, building, and even sometimes selling e-commerce startups such as insuranceorder.com, carorder.com, and applianceorder.com. We might have been great with technology, but we could have used some help with branding. That year, polling indicated that 53% of Americans had never made an internet purchase, and 48% couldn't even name an internet company. Online shopping was expected to rise to a total of $20 billion. Well, that was then and this is now. Last year, 1.7 billion people made an online purchase. Going back to putting things in context, the entire population of China is 1.4 billion. They spent 2.3 trillion US dollars. To put that into context, India's GDP clocks in at 2.5. In the next 3 years, global e-retail sales are expected to hit 4.5 trillion, surpassing Germany's GDP. That's the progress in just the last 20 years. I'm excited to be here this morning to talk to you about innovation. In addition to launching e-commerce startups, I've also held responsibility for product development and strategy at Marsh, the world's top insurance broker. I founded an advisory business focused on mid-sized companies in the real estate industry and currently work at Bloomberg, the technology driving the financial services industry and a company founded on the concept of constant innovation. Today, it is pretty universally accepted that innovation is a competitive requirement. A recent PwC poll found that 93% of business executives believe that organic growth through innovation will drive a greater proportion of their revenue growth going forward. So, how do we become innovative? In my career, I found there to be 4 key pillars of innovation: building your foundation, creating your blueprint, trust in success and in failure, and communication. While we will touch on all 4, I'm going to focus on the first 2 as I believe they're the most critical to success. It's not an accident that the majority of my roles have combined operation and strategy functions. Being able to successfully innovate, affect change, or be agile requires a strong underlying foundation. At the highest level, that means understanding what do you do? What problems do you solve? Why? Identify your purpose. It's truly a guidepost. You also need to get your house in order. You need to ensure role clarity, accountability, define responsibilities and authority, as well as goals and measurement tools. Your existing business needs to be running smoothly enough to keep the lights on. Bloomberg is widely considered to be the backbone of the modern financial industry. Innovation is in our DNA, and we're fairly obsessive about delivering new, valuable features to our clients, literally on a daily basis. As you can imagine, supporting and facilitating that agility presents its own set of challenges. When I initially joined the firm as the COO of the buy side, the division had been expanding like crazy, producing year-over-year double-digit growth for several years running. We had a very strong team, but like many young divisions, they were acting as generalists, as jack of all trades. Moving into the next level of maturity to support sustained innovation meant less all hands on deck and more of a clear workflow with checks and balances that enabled scalability and autonomy. A practical example of this: when I started, initially the person who sold you the system implemented the system and then managed your account. As you can imagine, this introduces all kinds of inefficiencies and inconsistencies. We reallocated those responsibilities across 3 separate roles, instilling checks and balances to make sure our solutions were fit for purpose, fully implemented in a standard fashion, and that the client had a very focused and responsive relationship manager and point of escalation, in keeping with our reputation for white glove service. Not only did this help us keep the lights on by producing a double-digit percentage increase growth in revenue from existing clients, but it also positioned us to effectively launch a new product that generated several millions of dollars within the first year. An important note when you're developing your foundation: while you need strong individual functions, as Harvard's Gary Pisano articulates, you must also document how those will work together to form an ecosystem that allows you to receive, analyze, and synthesize ideas into a business concept and product design. Developing a strong innovation process can require a host of complementary changes across your organization, but it enables you to make the intelligent trade-off decisions and confidently select which projects get funded. When I created Bloomberg's go-to-market strategy, it required the involvement of product, engineering, sales, implementation specialists, account managers, marketing, finance, compliance, documentation, and our frontline service team across multiple divisions. It was a really, really, really long year. Building a foundation also means truly understanding your market, your offering, your value, and your weaknesses. What things do you do that are commodities versus true differentiators? In some areas, you only need to be as good as the others. Don't kill yourself on those. Instead, identify your unique capabilities and prepare to build upon those. I'm a big fan of the blue ocean or change the conversation philosophies. There are a lot of ways to gather this data, and I particularly like the list that author and speaker Paul Sloan compiled in 21 Great Ways to Innovate. We heard a couple of them earlier, but ask your customers. They'll tell you. They'll be more than happy to tell you, and sometimes they'll be incremental innovation, sometimes it'll be radical. The key here is making sure that you set the expectation correctly and that they don't walk away thinking you're going to build everything they've just asked for. Learned that one the hard way. Observe them. Don't just ask them. Watch how they're using your product. This is how Heinz came up with the upside-down ketchup bottle, and Levi's started to introduce distressed jeans by watching how people were using their existing product. Use the difficulties and the complaints that come in. This is a huge gift. If you can address these, if you can change, tweak, you also will lower your service costs. Consider elimination or combination. Think about the things you could add or subtract to make your product better. I mean, a suitcase with wheels or a mobile phone with a camera. Ask your team. They're on the front line. They probably know just as well as anyone. And finally, use social networks. We all know there's no shortage of opinion on those. But the most critical element of any and all of these methods is your ability to listen and your willingness to hear. If you don't exercise that discipline, your entire effort will be wasted. Okay, so we know our business. Our team is operating smoothly. We have an innovation process in place, and we've identified an opportunity for improvement or advantage. In my experience, the next pillar, creating your blueprint, is actually the single most important to successful innovation. Understanding what you're actually trying to achieve is so important on so many levels. It allows you to allocate responsibility and build different elements simultaneously while still in harmony. It allows you to be nimble. You can more easily reallocate and redirect resources as necessary. It acts as your operating agreement and serves as an arbiter when conflicts arise. You will need something to fall back on when it all blows up, because it will. As a former colleague and fellow entrepreneur recently reminded me, be in love with solving the problem, not the solution. A couple notes on building blueprints. Firstly, it's really, really important to distinguish between a minimal viable product and a minimally commercially viable product. Something that will sell versus something that will work. We ran into this a while back where a product rolled out. We were getting ready to trade a new asset class, and product rolled out what they believed to be the solution, and our sales guys just kind of looked at it and said, no. Product's like, what's wrong? It works. Like, yeah, maybe it works, but nobody's going to buy that. We had to turn around and go back and look at our blueprint and understand where our communication broke down and who had made what executive decisions to eliminate some of what turned out to be key functionality. But we were able to do it because we had that operating agreement in place. Secondly, you need to build in phases and natural inflection points. This allows you to regularly review progress and direction. You're able to have a more balanced viewpoint and make corrections, as well as seize opportunities in a timely fashion and not under duress. Thirdly, allocate and delegate. More on this in a moment, but build to the blueprint and then get out of everyone's way. Let them learn to construct in their own way. A blueprint is not a set of directions. Let me repeat that. It's not a set of directions. It's a direction, the way you want to go. And your team will generally execute in creative ways you can't think of. All of this is designed to allow you to fail fast and to react, tweak, change accordingly so that your vision can become a reality. When you're thinking about this, one very important point that a former colleague in early Rackspace executive recently raised to me is the importance of ring fencing. In other words, make sure that you separate these efforts from your regular business. You can't judge them by the same efficiency or profitability or the other metrics as you do your regular business. Otherwise, you'll end up killing them every single time. Developing new products and services, it takes time. It's messy. There are dead ends, U-turns, detours. A different mentality and, quite frankly, a different skill set is required versus managing a mature business. Give your innovation team those people and that process room to breathe. That does not mean you don't hold them accountable. To the contrary, within each phase, there should be many, many milestones that provide opportunities for evaluation. Critiquing and tweaking is critical to this success and to the process. Open and honest, yet respectful, communication is required. This is neither the time nor place for defensive people or thin skin. Ideas should be heartily defended, but it must be viewed as perfectly acceptable to pivot if efforts are not gaining traction. There's a fine line between perseverance and keeping something on life support. Your blueprint really helps in these situations, providing the master plan or perspective that allows you to consider the whole problem and this element in context. How else can you build out that element or solve that problem? Recently, I've been working on a multi-phase turnaround project. We wrapped phase 1, delivered against our goals, and sat down to evaluate the results and what we learned. The new information led us to change course pretty drastically. We didn't do anything wrong, and it wasn't a failure. Actually, it was a success. We didn't keep barreling down full speed ahead the road we had planned to reach our ultimate goal, only to find out that it wasn't what we needed or what our clients wanted. Instead, we celebrated our phase 1 achievements and then got to work reworking our blueprint and plan. Pillar 3 is really critical: trust in success and failure. Honestly, at this point, our job is to get out of the way. Trust the foundation that we've built, process we've developed, the checks and balances we've put into place. Allow your team the room and the room they need to create. As I mentioned earlier, this is not about you writing down every single step of how to create something new. It's about providing goals, parameters, and measurement tools so that they can be creative and thoughtful in producing. Little kills innovation faster than micromanaging. Allow them to grow and foster the team camaraderie. It's important that they can speak openly and freely with one another, asking for help, and for you to remove roadblocks and provide input as asked. It's truly amazing to watch. In both success and failure, your team will outperform your expectations. One note on failure. It will happen. Even with all your planning, your process, your communication, stuff will go wrong. Things will blindside you. New regulation will be passed. A competitor will step in front of you. An acquisition will change the industry landscape. Tons of stuff, mostly out of your control, and sometimes even off your imagination, can impact your progress. You can't be specifically prepared for it all, but you are in control of your response, and your team is watching. Not too long ago, I was working on something new and received an email. It was one of those emails. It was daunting, scary, completely discouraging. It was also a Saturday night. It didn't help. It was a list a mile long from a source I trusted and respected, articulating the challenges he saw around what we were trying to achieve. I sat there for a moment, and 3 thoughts went through my head. The first I won't say from up here. The second was an acute realization that my response would set the tone for the team. And the third was the reminder that you have to be in love with the problem, not the solution. I reminded the team that the problem still existed. We remained passionate about finding a solution. It might not be the one we were planning, which was annoying, but we could go back to our blueprint and data and examine our assumptions against the challenges raised. The good news is we could do this pretty clinically, without emotion and without argument, because our foundation is solid and our blueprint exists. As it turned out, that email really helped us narrow our research and direct our efforts, eventually leading us to a simpler solution than our initial approach. Okay, pillar 4, communication. In the same way that phases and conducting scheduled evaluations are important, issuing regular standard communications is as well. It accomplishes several things. Facilitates balanced updates. You won't be tempted to provide only positive updates, and likewise, negative information will fit better into context. Additionally, it helps educate your supporters and give them new ammo. You will need people to carry the torch when you're not around. Buy-in to innovation is critical. It helps you remove hurdles and can temper resistance. The more empowered owners and champions of your program that exist, the more others will extend grace and assistance. It goes a bit to what Sheetal was saying about the power of your network. You'll get very tired very quickly if you don't have that support team who is championing your idea from the sidelines. Consistent, neutral communication also will enable your detractors or your skeptics an opportunity to learn more gracefully and hopefully get on board or at least stop actively resisting you. This doesn't have to be overwhelming. I've used weekly RAG status updates, simple one-page monthly overviews, lunch and learns, Friday emails, our firm's intranet. Really, the complexity of your project, composition of your stakeholders, and tenor of your firm will dictate your delivery method. I am going to go super tactical for one moment. I wouldn't be a good COO if I didn't. Measure to manage is real. Sometimes it is measure to stay alive. You absolutely need to invest in a project manager and a change manager. These are not the same people. They are not part-time jobs, and most importantly, they are not you. They are critical to keeping projects on track, identifying early warning for slippage and roadblocks, and the experts who will help develop your value proposition, drive acceptance, adoption, and eventually advocacy. Do not cut your budget here. Change management and PMO resources ensure you have something to report and that it's delivered in a way your discrete stakeholders can accept. So, by now, it's evident that I firmly believe innovation to be a process and not a result, and that it requires far more discipline and preparation than creativity. In my experience, those big bang, mythical eureka moments are actually the culmination of a lot of quiet, head down, sleeves rolled up moments. I believe few businesses have innovated as well as Marsh's Captive Solutions division. For the last 20 years, it has been a clear industry leader, managing a quarter of the world's captives, which write in excess of $43 billion in premium annually. A captive is basically a form of self-insurance. When I joined as COO and head of strategy for the division, we were already the market leader by a wide, wide margin. We were highly profitable. So why change? How did we know we weren't going to mess up a good thing? How were we supposed to convince the people who started it, and were still there, that innovation was necessary? Perhaps a little uncertain ourselves, my new CEO and I got to work. Reviewing the foundation led us to re-engineer a very established workflow. We pulled specific back office functions out of our general offices and created centers of excellence in Halifax and in Dublin to optimize efficiency, capitalize on pockets of well-priced talent, and ensure the guys in the general offices could spend more time focusing on clients and industry-specific issues. We created our blueprint. This was pretty early on in the digital revolution. While we didn't know exactly what we needed to accomplish, we knew the data we held was extremely valuable. We started by developing what quickly became the industry's leading benchmark report on captives, which then evolved into a consulting practice, and today is a tech-based analytics platform that represents an entirely separate revenue stream from captive management. They trusted us with freedom and with budget and with headcount, in large part because we communicated internally, up the chain, and externally, constantly. I gave and ghost wrote more speeches, articles, and presentations than I care to recall. But Marsh's willingness to invest in reviewing and adjusting a high-functioning foundation proved key to the firm's future. In the 10 years since I left, there's been a 40% increase in the captive market, driven primarily by issues such as cyber risk that barely existed back then. The work we did and the foundation that we laid positioned Marsh to capitalize on these new opportunities. It has more than maintained its leadership position, increasing profitability, capacity, and its ability to innovate. So the time is now to innovate. Even if you don't think you need to, it's probably exactly when you need to. So get your house in order, build a solid foundation. Know what you're doing and why. Love solving the problem. Don't be married to the solution. Set yourself up for success by planning ahead, creating your blueprint, reviewing it regularly, and adjusting for new information. Then get out of your team's way. Trust their approach. Let them fail and trust they will recover stronger. Be someone they can trust for help, not someone dictating their every move. Shout your mission from the mountaintops using messages targeted to your stakeholders. Finally, remember innovation is a process, not a result. Enjoy the journey. Good luck, and thank you for your time this morning.